On October 2, 1986, Novosibirsk documentary filmmakers shot the crash of the Mi-8 helicopter, which only by luck did not crash into the destroyed power unit of the Chernobyl NPP. History is written by the strokes of chance, and the impassive eye of a movie camera has more than once captured footage that unexpectedly became an invaluable historical document. It is unlikely that the resident of Dallas, shooting John F. Kennedy's visit to Texas on November 22, 1963, believed that he would become the owner of a tape with a record of the assassination of the president. And Novosibirsk documentary filmmakers, working in the fall of 1986 in Chernobyl, did not think that shooting a rally during the construction of the sarcophagus of the destroyed 4th power unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant will turn out to be the birth of some of the most tragic and symbolic shots taken during the elimination of the consequences of the accident. And to understand what happened then at the mouth of atomic Vesuvius, we will go back 38 years and reconstruct the events of that day and everything that followed it. And helped us in this Valery Novikov, Novosibirsk documentary filmmaker, a direct eyewitness of what happened. Everything happened in a matter of seconds and took 1.26 frames of film. Initially, the question arises, what was the film crew from distant Novosibirsk doing in Chernobyl? It turns out that specialists of Novosibirsk Sibakademstroy were engaged in the construction of the sarcophagus for the exploded power unit at one of the stages. The construction department 605 was established, headed by Gennady Lykov, a Siberian. He invited a group from the West Siberian Film Studio to film a chronicle of the struggle of man with the peaceful atom, which overnight became the most dangerous enemy and turned the fertile Ukrainian lands into a deadly zone. A zone of contamination. We arrived there in September 1986. Even then it was clear that the sarcophagus is a unique structure, which man has not yet had to build, and we sought to shoot on black and white film as much as possible, recalls Valery Germanovich. During the 2 months we spent there, we were able to visit everywhere, including the roof and the engine room of Unit 4. We were allowed in there literally for minutes. The radiation was beyond all imaginable limits. Everyone understood everything, but there was no fear. Like everyone else, we had to work, and we didn't think much about the rest. Among other things, the crew took to the air and filmed the Chernobyl NPP from helicopters filling the reactor with decontamination solution. More than 10,000 meters of film were shot by Novosibirsk residents on their first business trip to the Chernobyl power plant. But that was later, and then, on October 2, 1986, the group was preparing to shoot the solemn moment. By October, the main part of the sarcophagus was ready. The reactor was covered with huge powerful metal plates, behind which concrete was poured in a continuous stream. Hundreds of hours of hard labor yielded the result. The radiation background around the plant dropped significantly. To celebrate the first victory, the management decided to hold a rally right on the site in front of CHNPP. And it was held on October 2nd. Specially distinguished people were awarded certificates, a military band played. There was still a lot of work to be done. The sarcophagus still had no roof. But there was already a reason to breathe a sigh of relief. The meeting was coming to an end when helicopters appeared in the sky. There was no point in shouting over the hum of the engines, and the event had to be called off early. In the meantime, the pilots were doing what they had become accustomed to doing, bringing their rotorcraft to the reactor and dropping a decontaminating adhesive solution on it. It would bind the radioactive dust on the ground, preventing it from rising. The crews and the machines themselves received huge doses of radiation in the process. Lead plates that were fixed to the bottom and sides of the fuselage could not save the situation. These helicopters were then sent to an equipment burial ground near Chernobyl, all buried deep in the ground. All but one. On this day, in addition to the Rally Novikov film crew planned to shoot another episode in the bunker not affected by the explosion of the station, from which the remote control of German cranes demag, laying huge concrete blocks and metal structures of the object shelter. By the way, it was not recommended to remove these cranes. In the USSR there was no equipment of sufficient capacity, and it was brought from Germany, not from the friendly GDR, but from the capitalist FRG, such an inconvenient moment. Everyone went there, and only operator Viktor Grebenyuk stayed in front of the sarcophagus. He decided to shoot close-ups. Another Mi-8 with a bucket of solution was approaching the reactor. It was 17.34 on the clock. In the first moment, no one realized what had happened, Valery Germanovich continues. One of the helicopters disappeared somewhere, and the screen of the control monitor was covered with clouds of thick smoke. Fallen? Hesitantly uttered someone from the superiors. At the same time the radio wheezed. All radios worked with distortion due to the strong ionization of the air, quickly draining the batteries. "There's a helicopter down," where roared the construction manager, "into a wreck?" "No, I don't think so, about 50 meters to the side, behind the engine room." "It's burning badly." "Sort of or exactly?" "Exactly." "Sort of, were there any people on the platform where it fell?" "No, I don't think so." "I don't know." And then came a frightening thought: what about Viktor Gribenyuk? What about him? A minute or two later I saw the operator in the bunker. He was clutching his canvas camera to his chest, being in a state of what is popularly known as pounding, of extreme excitement. In a breaking voice Viktor whispered in my ear, "I got it off. I got him." I was panning behind him, and he. Later we were told that Vladimir Vorobiev was at the helm. It was with him that we flew the first day of filming over the station. And what happened was this. For some reason, the helicopter too close to the German crane and blades hit his cable. The blades instantly collapsed, and the machine crashed to the ground away from the people, next to the engine room. It is hard to imagine what would have happened if the fully fueled machine had fallen into the collapse itself and what the second release might have been. But this time the peaceful atom took only 4. As if so little grief had happened on this earth. In addition to Captain Vorobiev, 3 others died: the co-pilot, Senior Lieutenant Alexander Youngand, the flight mechanic, Senior Lieutenant Leonid Kristik, and Warrant Officer Nikolai Gansyuk. The latter worked in the maintenance of the heliport and was on board by chance. He wanted to make some photos from the height. Already on October 3, a report was sent to the chairman of the KGB of the Ukrainian SSR, which said, according to preliminary data, the crash occurred as a result of blinding by the rays of the sun of the crew commander. That may have been the case. Helicopter pilots themselves say the radiation caused various reactions: weakness, nosebleeds, nausea, brief lapses of consciousness, and including a state similar to euphoria or intoxication. And if you add to that 8 to 10 sorties a day, there could have been more tragedies. On the same evening of October 2, Novosibirsk residents were deciding what to do with the film. It even came to the point that Gribenyuk doubted whether the camera was working when he was looking through the lens at the falling helicopter. In the end, the assistant Sergei Shikhov went to Novosibirsk to develop and print the film. Everything was in place. 1 meter, 26 frames of the tragedy. Soon after filming, as if an evil fate began to mow down everyone involved in the picture. Deputy Minister Sredmash Uzanov received after the completion of the elimination of the star of Hero, and a year later died. Scriptwriter and editor of the Novosibirsk group Viktor Popov also did not live long. And on February 16, 1990, Viktor Gribenyuk tragically died. He came to Moscow at the invitation of Fyodor Konyukov to go together on an expedition to the North Pole. And the same night he was found near the Hotel Ural with a broken head. Investigators never found out what happened to Viktor. He was buried in Novosibirsk. Somewhere in an unnamed burial ground rests in his movie camera, the faithful canvas hopelessly soaked with radiation, so they had to bury it deeper, pouring a thick layer of concrete on top. A monument was erected on the helipad between Chernobyl and the station, where the machines that performed endless decontamination flights took off from. A part of a helicopter blade pointing into the sky and surrounded by a symbolic sarcophagus. There is a plaque with 4 names on it, those who among many stood up in the face of a danger that humanity had never known before and gave their lives for the lives of many others. Those who simply did their job, which turned out to be a feat. Those who were called liquidators. Photo fact. This is really Alla Pugacheva kneeling in front of the Chernobyl victims. The future prima donna of the Russian pop music visited Chernobyl with a concert in the same fall of 1986. The performance was held in the village of Liquidators Zelenyi Mice, a relatively clean place from radiation about 70 kilometers from the Chernobyl power plant. According to the memories of Valery Novikov, Alla Borisovna was not afraid to allow herself a lot of things, performing her Schlager, "Hey, you up there," the singer added in the chorus. Why did they blow up the station? Those ordinary people, before whose courage Alla Pugacheva knelt, did not need to explain to whom these words were addressed.